What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. Joining me from Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, it's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. I was there not too long ago either. You can probably tell by my face because I'm about as burned as you could possibly be. Should have brought a hat, but you live and you learn, AJ. And I did not learn. I did not do a very good job of protecting my face today. But, AJ, we're here. I mean, it's just such an unfortunate afternoon, first and foremost, with the Carolina announcing after the game that Tylee Kraft passed away after his 2.5-year battle with cancer. We did a separate podcast on that, so go watch that one if you haven't already. And I think I speak for me and AJ both, where in a lot of ways it doesn't feel right coming on here and analyzing a game after some news like that. But like we just talked about a little bit off camera, it's our job to do so. So we're going to come on here and break down what was an unfortunate loss for North Carolina to Georgia Tech at home, 41-34, and a super unfortunate one for Carolina for many reasons, and especially with how that one ended. But AJ, I want to start with Carolina's rushing defense, man. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the 68-yard run Carolina gave up with seconds remaining in the game to ultimately lose to Georgia Tech, but 371 yards on the ground, 68 coming on basically Georgia Tech's final play, which resulted in a touchdown, giving Georgia Tech the lead and ultimately a win. But I remember I was sitting in the stands today, and I remember actually reading one of your tweets in the second half. I think it might have been late in the third quarter or something like that, because you basically put out, I don't think Georgia Tech throws again this game because they don't need to. They're running all over Carolina, and they're getting absolutely everything that they want on the ground. 7.7 yards per carry on 48 attempts, again, and 371 yards through the ground alone. So, AJ, I mean, we can analyze the game all you want, and you can look at X's and O's and all this jazz and why they gave up so much rushing yards. But when you see that 371, I'll repeat it for about the fourth time I've said it in the last minute. When you give up that many runs on the ground, or yards on the ground, excuse me, you're going to be hard-pressed to win a football game, especially when you look at how much this Carolina team has just struggled this year. So, yeah, that's hard to win football games when you're giving up that many yards on the ground, isn't it?
Yeah, teams that can't bow up as the clock is winding down don't win games. And I have to rack my brain, Jacob, but Georgia Tech gets the ball with 34 seconds left in the first half, and they run for 63 yards and get a field goal. They attempted the field goal with 6 seconds left. So in 28 seconds, they went 63 yards on 4 runs. They get the ball back with 44 seconds? 46 seconds?
I think it was 44. I've got the game pulled up. Let me look.
Well, it was 44. It was 44. And the touchdown was scored with 16, so it's another 28 seconds. So in a 28-second span at the end of the first half, Georgia Tech ran 4 times for 63 yards. And then today, and then at the end of regulation, they had the 68-yard run. So 68 plus 63, last I checked, is 131. They had 131 yards in 56 combined seconds inside the final minute of each half. But that's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go one step further, and you got some numbers you're going to read here in a minute. Go back to the fourth quarter in Atlanta last year, when Carolina gave up 246 rushing yards, I think it was.
I think so, yeah.
I just had that added up. In the last 5 quarters, Georgia Tech against North Carolina, the last 5 quarters, Georgia Tech has 617 yards rushing. It doesn't matter who the coordinator is. It seems to not matter who the position coaches are. It's just bad. It's bad defense. They did some things to help give them a chance to win today. It helped them that Haynes King, who came into the game banged up, went out, and Zach Pyron had to finish the game. Otherwise, honestly, I mean, I described it one time, one of the runs that Haynes King had down to maybe the 4 or something like that. It was before his touchdown run going into the Carolina tunnel end zone. I said it was like a guy trying to get through heavy mall traffic.
Yeah. Not
football players. everything we've said the last couple of weeks about the negative aspects of this defense is there. They don't force turnovers. They don't get pressure on the quarterback. They don't get sacks. They gave up 3 sacks. They turned the ball over twice or 3 times. It's not a good football team that crazily has been in position to win games, and you got to wonder, Sam or Drake may have won these games, not JMU, may have won these other games, and he and Sam just camouflaged so many of the things just weren't right in the program, weren't right a few years ago, and never got fixed.
Yeah. Right?
You know, when I talked about process, but we stopped talking about the process because it was long past process. Mm-hmm. It got to a point where we were processing. Mm-hmm. And when you process what has transpired, the reality is North Carolina is a terrible rush defense, mm-hmm. has been, will be. I don't see there's no indication it's going to get better.
No.
Can't stop the run. If you can't stop the run, you are not going to win games, even against a schedule where there are a lot of manageable games, but they're not manageable for a defense that gives up 371 yards rushing. Read the numbers, read the runs. There were 10 of them for 10 or more yards. Read what they were.
Yeah, 37 yards, 68 yards, 14 yards, 20, 12, 14, 11, 28, 14, and 10.
Yeah. Okay. I was told by someone who covers Georgia Tech that Brent Key, the Georgia Tech coach, said after the game that Carolina came out in a very different scheme than they had prepared for to start the game, especially the safeties where they were. And he basically said that the hint was Jeff Collins figured that Brent Key knew what he was all about, so he tried to change things. So they went into the game trying to be something different than what they had been all along. It didn't work. So whether it's today's scheme or the other schemes, I got to be completely objective and honest here. It may not be words that some people want to hear, but it doesn't matter what the scheme is. You cannot stop the run. It doesn't matter where your safeties are. It doesn't matter the easy access throws we were told every day in August that they were not going to allow. We're going to knock them off their landmark, the receivers. And it's the same old stuff. And it's a bad defense, and it's a horrible run defense. They got torched today. When you can't stop your opponent on the ground, when you get the ball to start, or you get the ball with 34 seconds left in the half, all right, after Carolina just scored, Key hands the ball off. He's going to run out the clock. But the run went 37 yards. Well, let's run it again. Run it again. They had an incomplete pass. Run it again. They get a field goal. It was at the 12-yard line. Some of us are like, there were 6 seconds left. I'll just go ahead and run. Might get a touchdown. But he did the right thing, obviously, by kicking. But it was sort of like that. It's very possible Haynes King could have done a keeper and run it in for 12 yards out to end the first half. Anything else we could say? It's when you look down, if I go back and watch the game, the replay, I'm just going to see a lot of mess.
Yeah, I mean, and it culminates in that.
Excuse me.
No, you're fine. It culminates in the last run, 60 yards up the middle, and it was a weird one too, because I was talking about this with my dad on the way back to the car, who I sat with in the stands today, with among other people. But I said I don't really care, especially with that play. I said, for me, X's and O's goes out the window on that one particular play, because at the end of the day, it didn't even feel like it felt like the play calling late from Georgia Tech was just to get to overtime. You don't run 2 times in a row. I mean, I know they were having a lot of success, but I don't think even Georgia Tech expected to go up the middle untouched 68 yards to win the game with.
You think?
Maybe they did. I don't know.
I talked to someone who covers, someone who knows Georgia Tech better than anybody in the media.
You think they just thought, hey, we might be able to score.
Halftime, talked to them after the game. They knew they could run right at Carolina.
And
they had no respect for Carolina's run defense. I'm telling you right now.
And they shouldn't.
They had no respect for Carolina's run defense.
Yeah.
None.
And they shouldn't have.
And they made the right call.
And to go up the middle in that situation just tied the game up. And, you know, again, we could have a different conversation too, because, you know, I hate to say it, but John Copenhaver probably should have caught that touchdown pass.
He
right,
should have caught that pass. The most reliable hands on this year's team is John Copenhaver.
It was a great throw from Criswell.
2 years ago, right here at 9-1, the most reliable hands on that team was Josh Downs. He drops the ball, they lose to Georgia Tech.
And what happens is Copenhaver drops it, Carolina kicks a field goal, tie game. I think everybody's kind of like, okay, we're going to overtime. Georgia Tech, I think, runs for 7 yards on the next play, first play of the drive.
It was a 7-yard pass play.
Yeah, 7-yard pass play.
A little flare, got 7 yards, which is a lot. Got to the 32 because all they needed was a field goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then
so when you have 44 seconds, 7 yards, and you get out of bounds, you got all the time in the world, especially against this defense.
I know. And I was actually
the clock when Carolina kicked the field goal. I was thinking to myself, man, they probably could have used some more time there. I was itemizing the play-by-play a lot, and I wasn't thinking so much about the time. And I was getting stuff out on Twitter and trying to fix how it happened because I had written a lot of stuff about them losing, and I'm starting to say, oh, crap, maybe I got to write stuff about them winning. So I have to adjust. You know how it is when you get toward the end of the game. There's 1,000 things going on, and people are texting me like crazy about stuff, and God love them. But
I joked, AJ.
They have no respect for Carolina's run game. Virginia's not going to respect Carolina's run defense. That is. Florida State, with all of its just grossness, grotesqueness, disgustingness, however you want to call it, they're not going to respect the run defense. But Wake Forest isn't going to respect the run defense. Boston College sure as hell ain't going to. Thomas Castellanos is already looking at his chops, and NC State's not going to respect it. They can't stop the run. It was fool's gold earlier because Minnesota's offense sucked that night. Carolina had a lot to do with it. And then Charlotte's not any good. Central ain't any good.
Yeah.
Charlotte did have 8 explosive plays. That was a red flag. And so they were great statistically against those teams' rushing defense. But I'd be willing to bet you, if you look at JMU and on the last 4 games, whatever I don't know what it is right now. I'll have to look at it when I get back to my spot over in that part of the press box. They're probably dead last in the country since then in run defense.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, why would any team respect it when you see what they've been giving up on the ground, and to give up that play like they did, untouched up the middle, 68 yards, touchdown, game's over, see you later, stadium empties out. And yeah, I was almost in disbelief, even for someone like me sitting in the stands, from more of a neutral perspective as a journalist. I'm sitting there and I was almost like, I wasn't in shock that Carolina's defense gave up a late drive to win a game. I was in shock that he ran 68 yards untouched up the middle in that situation. But I think based on our conversation here, based on the stats, because the stats don't lie, man, I think I probably shouldn't have been surprised is kind of what we're talking about.
That's 68. What you're saying is that 68, you figured that would have been partitioned off about 4 places.
Yeah, I did. I thought that I actually told
so it would have been 16,
this is way too much time.
12, 11, and 29.
Yeah. I didn't think it was going to happen like that.
We're beating the horse because we have no other choice because the horse is there and it keeps coming back for a beating each week.
Yeah, I mean,
4 in a row now. 4 in a row to Georgia Tech, a program that should not lose 4 in a row to. 4 in a row overall against James Madison, Duke, Pittsburgh, and Georgia Tech. Not exactly. And Carolina fans want to go to the SEC? You kidding me?
Yeah, you don't want that.
Come on, guys.
You don't want that.
Wake up, man. You got to be able to handle business here in this league first.
Yeah.
Anyway, there were some positives in this game, which we should probably address right now.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard pressed if we just came on here where I'm sure a lot of Carolina fans wouldn't mind if we were just negative the whole time on here.
Red meat, baby, red meat. Let's chew on the red meat.
Again, and I will say too, I did say someone in the stands like 44 seconds, 50 seconds. That's a lot of time. And 2 plays later, Georgia Tech scores. I mean, and that's just, it's not me making stuff up. This is stuff I've witnessed for a long time as someone who's been going to Carolina games for a long time, but it's something I witnessed with this team giving up late drives. So yeah, just an absolutely brutal way to lose in a game that you shouldn't be losing like that. Let's put it that way. But if you can't stop the run, you're going to lose a lot of football games, but focus on some positives. I guess there is one positive, I guess, in particular, and that's Carolina did fight back, down 10 in the 4th, did find a way to kind of come back in it. And it's funny because the defense does make a stop and the offense gets the ball back, and they go down there and they have a chance to score. And it's a John Copenaver drop away from Carolina scoring a touchdown. And maybe we're having a completely different conversation. More than likely, we're probably not, based on what we saw in that last drive. Who knows? But I think scoring a touchdown there at least would have shifted the momentum a little bit more than maybe it does with the field goal, because it's a tie game and Georgia Tech's like, well, still a tie game. We can still go to overtime and win this. But I think you have to give Carolina credit for coming back like they did. I mean, ultimately it wasn't enough in the long run, but we have seen this team fight back at times and be in games late and just not be able to find ways to win. So talk to me a little bit about that, because if you're going to take any positives away from this game, I guess that's the number one thing you're going to focus on.
For those who have said, as Monday morning quarterbacking or Sunday morning quarterbacking or Saturday afternoon imbibing and texting or tweeting and stuff like that, that Mac Brown has lost his team, I will vehemently disagree with that. And I think today is an example of that, because Georgia Tech should have blown Carolina out. Georgia Tech gave them chances, shouldn't have. Brinke and his staff can go back and look and say, man, we should have put the foot on the throat. We didn't do it. We kept letting them up. And the Tar Heels, to their credit, Jacoby Criswell fought his rear end off today. Kid's got heart. He's a fighter. He's running the ball more. He's taking a beating out there. I thought he made some decent throws. He's going to miss throws because he's not there yet, if he ever will be there. But his grit, I thought, kind of fed the rest of the offense. And they were able to do enough. That touchdown they scored in the fourth quarter today, about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
That was their first fourth quarter touchdown against a power conference opponent since midway through the loss at Clemson last year. Up to that point, if you take the final 7:03 at Clemson and the first whatever it was today, they went 93 minutes and 36 seconds of fourth quarter playing time against power conference teams without scoring a touchdown.
It's hard to believe, honestly.
Well, it's disgusting. It's the equivalent of how bad the run defense is. But they got the touchdown. They got a field goal, they got a touchdown. They got 10 points in the fourth quarter. They had scored 6 points in the fourth quarter that entire time, 2 field goals in Minnesota. So they fought back and they got in the end zone. They had 4 tries down there. They got it on the fourth one. You probably want to get on the first one, but as long as you get in the end zone, that's all that matters. So I thought that they showed that they still have it together. Mac and the staff hadn't lost them, and Jacoby is starting to kind of lead by example a little bit. You could see the guys following him more today than in the previous weeks, and that's a positive. They're 3-4. They still have a chance to win some games. I'm not going to project what the end of the season would be right now. Right now, they just got to get off the schneid and get a W, because they're open this coming week. So by the time that they take the field in Charlottesville, which will be the 26th, it will have been since the 18th or something like that of September since they had won. Mm-hmm. And they were 17-10 in the fourth quarter with NC Central. So, look, you got to find positives. You just can't pour kerosene on the fire. You've got to be able to step away and look at the full picture view and find things these guys can build on. I think they can build on that. They have winnable games left. I have no idea if Virginia's a winnable game right now. They're better than people thought. But Wake Forest is, Florida State is, NC State is. Those are winnable games for this team. So we'll see. But that's a positive. Elijah Huzzy, punt return for positive. On that very same punt return, they damn near blocked the punt.
I know.
So they didn't have major screw ups there. Huzzy is a good player. He's going to play in the NFL. And so they got an offensive touchdown last week, the first one since the Duke game in 2020. And Huzzy now has a punt return for TD last year at Pitt, had one today. So there are some positive things for them to look at. But by and large, 4 losses in a row. The defense is not good. The rush defense is abysmal. That's who they are. And it'll be interesting to see if they can close out the season getting a couple wins. Because I think right now, getting a couple wins kind of feels like a high mark,
Yeah, I think it does. I think that's where this team's at right now. I mean, it's like you talked about it, 4 in a row, kind of in the middle of that collapse era we've seen the last few seasons just happened to happen a lot earlier. And that's not me trying to make a narrative. I mean, we're really in the middle of it. I think covering it, we're in the middle of that right now because of what we've witnessed on the field and because of what the results have been. So I think the bye week comes at an exceptionally good time. But again, AJ, I keep saying it, man, on the football show too. We're coming on here week in, week out, and we're having to talk about the same exact things, and they're not getting fixed. And ultimately, I'm not someone who puts the blame all on the coaching staff and everything like that. I do think the players have to take responsibility as well, and they should take responsibility. But AJ, I've said this multiple times. It may not be the coach's fault on every play, but it's their responsibility to get this team winning games. They're not winning games right now, and that's an indictment on the staff. So
it's everybody's fault except James Spurley.
Yeah,
it's not his fault.
Shout out James. Shout out James, man, great guy.
Love James.
I don't know, man. I know fans are frustrated. I get it, and again, I think the super and incredibly unfortunate thing is that this loss, while that was unfortunate, was overshadowed by Tylee Craft's death. I mean, it's just an absolutely horrible news for everybody involved. And like we said in the other podcast, our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family right now, because some things are bigger than football, man, and this is one of them. So,
and I think from a football standpoint, that's sort of we just kind of hit on what this means.
I think that's it. I think with that, I think the bye week comes at a great time.
Have to be said. The numbers have to be said. Carolina's 1-7 in their last 8 ACC games. Carolina is 3-9 in its last 12 FBS games. I think that's what it is.
It's just not good, man. No matter how you look at it, it's just not good.
I've been doing this a long time, and this kind of direction at this point in 10 years doesn't end well.
No, it doesn't, and it'll be interesting to see after the bye week if anything changes. If Carolina's maybe galvanized by something.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say we're not going to go there right now. It's not our job to go there right now. Some people say, "Oh, you guys don't go." It's not our job to do that right now because there's still 5 games left. Let's see. I'm the most patient. I'm a very impatient person, as you and our staff knows. But I'm a very patient person with what I cover because I understand through 3 decades of doing this, you've got to let stuff play itself out. Don't judge a game in the first quarter because there's still a few more. How many people fired the staff throughout the game today? And there they were, perhaps a Copenhagen reception away from winning this game. You've got to let things play itself out. But I am saying, in my experiences, and I've covered a lot of situations like this, covering college football in the triangle like I have, when things are going in this direction at the rate it is right now, and it's pretty rapid, it doesn't end well. That's what history tells me. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. I'm not saying that's what should happen. I'm just saying all indicators suggest it's not going to end well. They have a chance where they have 2 bye weeks in the next 4 weeks, and they got 2 road games against a program in UVA they should be able to beat. And an absolute, you think Carolina's a train wreck? Florida State says, hold my beer.
Yeah, you ain't lying about that, man.
That's a bigger train wreck. So
it is what it is, man.
As Forrest Gump would say, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, man, it ultimately, and I think Mac even said it earlier this week or some point recently, that as a coach and as someone who's leading the program, you're in the business of winning football games. And when you're not winning football games, things can happen. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But yeah, disappointing loss for Carolina, 41-34, and obviously overshadowed by the incredibly, incredibly sad passing of Tylee Craft. So our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family and everybody around the Carolina football program, because that's a lot bigger than a football game. I can tell you that for free. And I know everybody watching that agrees and understands that. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones, another edition of our 3 Things Post Game podcast. Appreciate y'all watching as always, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.
Thanks.